Okay, welcome back to this series on creating a kitchen cabinet in Fusion 360. If you follow along, ultimately this series will end with putting the cabinets together and installing them in my house. Creating the 36-inch cabinet, modifying it for the 24-inch cabinet, and then also the top cabinets as well as cutting them out on the CNC, assembling, creating the doors. Hopefully this will just go from start to finish. So in the previous video, if you haven't watched that yet, go back and watch that. It shows real simple, entering all the parameters I find useful in creating a kitchen cabinet. And this video will be actually creating the kitchen cabinet. I might combine these videos too. It'd be weird to just watch someone type parameters into a box in Fusion 360. So here we go. Okay, so we're going to create a sketch. And I like to build from the side to side rather than bottom up. So bear with me, Fusion seems to be a little bit slower when you're recording what you're doing. So the first thing we're going to do is make a box. So there's our box. It's nothing special. It's not even the right dimensions. So when you are putting the box in, you have the option here to enter your dimensions. You could tab through them and enter your dimensions, but for the purposes of the demonstration here, we'll just create a box, random size, random length, and we're going to start to dimension them out. So you can use the sketch dimension tool or the quick key, or the keyboard key D, and there you go. Okay, so the depth of the cabinet here, now we already entered the depth of the cabinet in our parameters, so there's cabinet depth right there. Enter. Oops. And the height of the cabinet is, what are you doing to me? Cabinet height. So there is the cabinet. Obviously a bunch of stuff is missing, so we're going to add that now. Something to note right now, I use pocket holes to assemble the cabinets. I do, however, have two dados in each side. There's a back dado for the back piece and a dado for the bottom. I find it squares the cabinet up nice, makes it easy to assemble. So let's see. So we're going to start with the toe kick. So here we go. We'll make another square, and we will dimension this square to toe kick depth and toe kick height. And there you go. There's your toe kick. Now one thing I did is, or something that's super nice about Fusion 360 are the use of constraints. So I'll just demonstrate that real quick. If I just make a box, you'll notice all four sides of the box are blue. That means there's nothing about it that's locking it in anywhere. It can be moved or changed or whatever you want. So I want this edge of the box to be locked in to the front edge of the cabinet. So up here you see in the sketch interface constraints. This one in particular, the collinear, I want this line right here to be in the same plane, the same line as this one. So there, you click on that and it moves that box over. And you can see I still got an issue here because I can move it all around. So I haven't dimensioned the box yet. So I'll dimension the box. This and there is going to be the toe kick depth. And now I have a black line there. That line can't be moved. It's locked in place because the front of this box is collinear with the front of the cabinet. The back of the box is dimensioned, so it's locked in place. So now I need to do the same with the top line and the bottom line. So I will use this little quick. I want to make that collinear with the bottom. And now the only thing left is to dimension this top line. So that's just a quick little aside, I suppose. cabinet height. All right, there we go. So now we're going to do the bottom shelf. So we make a box kind of in the general area, it doesn't really matter. And we want the bottom of this dado to be collinear with the top of our shelf there. I'm sorry, the top of our toe kick. And this is going to be a blind dado. I do not want it to come all the way out the front. I don't want to be able to see that when you open up the doors. So I'm going to dimension that. I just want it to stay back. A blind dado, I want it to stay back about 1/2 inch. So that material is going to stay when I cut this out, so that you can't see the cut in the plywood. Just a design choice. I know it makes it a little more difficult. The shelf would get its whatever it's called when you apply the finish to the side of plywood. It escapes me right now. Doesn't matter. But it'll come out. It'll come straight out the back. So I'm going to make this back line here collinear with the back. So now it comes right out the back, and we'll dimension this top line to be material shelf. And there's the bottom dado. All right, now we're going to do the back dado. So same thing. It's a lot of repetitive stuff here, but create the rectangle. I want the bottom of the rectangle, I want it to go all the way down and sit. I want my back to come all the way down and sit on the bottom shelf. So there we go. And you know, you can change it later on, but whether the back shelf comes up and hits the back, whether the back comes down and hits the shelf, I suppose it doesn't really matter much. And this is going to be straight up to the top. And it's going to be collinear with the back. Oh, now, hey, there's one thing that I've forgotten. There's nailers in the back here. And the nailer, the thickness of the nailer is going to depend. Let's see if we can just do this. It's going to be nailers, and so the thickness of that nailer that I use, if I'm using 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch plywood, it's going to change the location of this back. So first we're going to do the nailers. So they're just vertical pieces that are going to be pocket holes screwed into the sides. So we're going to dimension it, and it's just going to be a 4-inch piece of material. It is going to be whatever I decide my nailer is going to be, and collinear to the top and collinear to the back. That's my nailer. And there's another one down at the bottom. We'll mention that to the material nailer. And again, it's just 4 inches. I could make a parameter for that if I change it, but I can't imagine wanting needing more than 4 inches to nail the cabinet in. You know, I may go pretty heavy with the parameters, but not everything needs a parameter. All right, so there we go. All right, so now what's nice about parameters and parametric modeling is this nailer is now attached to this corner. So if I make the cabinet taller, that nailer is going to follow it. Or if I make it deeper, that nailer is going to follow it. And so as such, we want our back dado to follow the nailers. So we're going to constraint this box. And now dimension that, and that is our material back. So this is a dado, and when that material gets measured and put into our parameter, that is going to update the thickness of this dado so that I can slide the back in right back along these nailers, and everything's going to be nice and tight. Okay, so the last two things that we need are the top. These cabinets are just going to be an open top, so you can, there's going to be a couple pieces of wood on the top. So we just draw a box, dimension it. It's going to be 4 inches long. It's going to be our material top. And it's going to be collinear into that corner. And same here. We'll dimension that to the material top. Four inches. Make it collinear to the front of the back dado. So now that gap where that dado is going to be between the top and the top rear nailer is going to be updated whenever I change the material back. So let's just see what that looks like. So if I go in and change material back plywood. So if I change my plywood from, let's say I got a really bad batch of plywood and my 1/4 inch plywood is 450 thousandths. I'll watch how this updates. It moves that front nailer, that top forward to create room for that dado. Keeps the nailer at the very back of the cabinet. So we'll go back and change that back. Plywood 0.25. So that's the power of parametric modeling, as a prominent YouTuber might say. All right, so the other thing that we need here is a divider for the bottom of the drawer. So that is something that we didn't add here, so we can go ahead and add material drawer. We'll just do divider horizontal, and that'll be 3/4 plywood. That gives us something to close our doors to underneath the shelf. So we are going to also need to know our shelf depth. Or I'm sorry, our drawer depth. So drawer depth, make it 4 1/4 inches. And we're going to go our drawer front is, what do you think? 4 1/4, make it 6 inches tall. That should work. So now what we want to do is draw a box. Sketch. And it's going to go about here. And now you got to kind of think about it. So it's going to be collinear with the front. It's going to be 4 inches deep. It's going to be material horizontal divider. And now the drawer is going to fit in here. So if the drawer front 6 inches tall, I want it to fall a 32nd of an inch short of midway through this divider and a 32nd of an inch from the top. So we're going to dimension that. Let's see. So this is where it can get a little tricky. We need to know how tall our drawer front is, which is changeable, and how much reveal we want between the top of the drawer front and the top of the cabinet, and the top of the drawer front and the top of the doors. So for simplicity, I'm going to have the bottom of my drawer front fall at the midpoint of the drawer divider, at the horizontal divider, and a 32nd of an inch down from the top. So we need a reference point. We need to know where midpoint of this is. So we're going to draw a line. And if you come in and hover in here, the triangle will tell you where halfway is. And there's halfway there. So now we have a line, but we don't want an actual line, a normal line. We want a construction line, it's called. So it's kind of just a reference line. Doesn't divide anything, doesn't play a role in extruding anything. It just tells us where ½ inch is. So we're going to dimension that from the top, and I want it to be drawer front minus 32nd of an inch. There we go. And now we need to add a shelf, our first shelf pin hole. We're going to do 2 rows of holes, front and back. I'm going to just do the first hole now, extrude it, create all the features, and then I'm going to pattern the feature, which means the pattern for the front row and the pattern for the back row will change depending on my parameters. But I don't need to sketch out all the holes. I only need to sketch out the first hole in each row that will then be patterned. So we're going to draw a circle, and obviously it's not that big, but it is going to be shelf pin hole, shelf hole diameter, and I'm going to start at 2 inches down from the top, and it is in front inset spacing, which is 2 inches. So there's the first hole, and we're going to model the second hole, which I want it to be shelf diameter, and I want it to be shelf hole spacing from the back, which is 2 inches. Now it's 2 inches from the dado, not the back of the cabinet. And I want it to be on the same plane as that. And to be honest with you, I'm not entirely sure which constraint I need to use. Equal. But they look right, but I'm just not sure. Let's see. If we come in here and we select that, there we go. Now we can come over here and do 2 inches there. See, learn something new every day. All right, now all that's done, and we're going to go ahead and extrude all this. So we're going to go back to solid, create, and we're going to select everything except the toe kick. And what I like to do is to go, right now I have my 0, 0, 0 point. I guess the sketch plane is at all 0. I like to go back. I don't want to extrude it this way into the cabinet. I want to extrude it out away from the cabinet, because that leaves my sketch right here on top, where I can easily adjust things and not have to worry about getting features of a sketch onto a different sketch. There's ways you can do that, but for this video I'm not going into that. So this will be material side. There, now did you notice that I typed in material side and it came back out into the positive? So I want it to be in the negative. Oops. So I'm going to add a negative in front of material side. And I like to do components, so it'll be a component. There's component 1. This is going to be left side. Alright, so one thing I didn't do is I didn't select the holes. So let's try it again. We'll select everything and we'll select everything and deselect that. But I don't want those lines. However you select it, just get the darn thing selected. Come on. Get it all selected. There we go. Everything but the toe kick now. Negative material side. New component. Okay, there it is. Left side. So let's turn that sketch back on because we want to be able to see it. In Fusion, whenever you extrude something, it turns the sketch that you extruded from off. So now what I'm interested in is these two. I want to create my dado, so I'll go to Modify, and it's in the negative plane. So negative material side divided by 2. So now it's going to cut in halfway. So now we can see, there we go, we got a nice dado all the way around. Alright, it's easier to see now. So this is where the back will slide in, and this is where the bottom will slide in, and it's a blind dado there, you can see that. So now we're going to work on our shelf pin holes. So we're going to press pull, select that one, and that one. And it'll be negative shelf hole depth, just 1/4 inch cut. Alright. So now what I want to do is turn off that sketch for a second. Create a pattern, a rectangular pattern. So in pattern these holes, we're going to select features. We'll go in there and we will, I think it's select that feature. And that feature is selected. And we'll select the direction, which is in the vertical. So you can see we're getting our holes now, so we're going to type in our shelf hole spacing. So that's where 3 holes will fall. Let's try 12. Whoops. Forgot. We need to, the distance type is spacing. Extent means it will stick all of the holes, 12 holes, evenly inside of your distance. So in this case, 1.5. So we want spacing. So now we'll get, where are we here? Okay, so we got spacing, and now we type in shelf hole spacing. There we go. But that, something looks off about that, doesn't it? We're going to cancel and try that again. Create rectangular pattern, features, spacing, select that. And the other one, in this case, I'll automatically select. So we'll select the direction, which is vertical. Shelf hole spacing. And let's see what 12 looks like. 12 looks good. I don't think there's much that'll fit underneath the shelf if you had it on the bottom. So there's really no reason to drive those holes all the way down to the bottom. Hit OK. Alright, so now if we change any parameter about these holes, they all will update. So as proof of that, let's change our front inset shelf hole inset front to 6 inches. And you will see these holes move in 6 inches. But only the front ones did. The back ones are their own thing. Alright, now we have one panel done. Obviously we need two. We need a lot more panels. So what we're going to do is create some construction planes to mirror this panel so that anything we do to this panel will be done to the other panel as well. So what we're going to do is first we're going to start with something called an offset plane. So we go up to the construction plane and we create an offset plane. Now we select the outside edge of our first panel as our first plane, and now we want to extend that, and we want to extend it to cabinet width. Oops. Negative cabinet width, which I'm not sure why I have to be in the negative, because it's in the positive in the origin, but whatever. Okay, so now we have an offset plane. So now this plane and this backside outside of the cabinet are 36 inches apart, and they'll always be 36 inches apart. So what I want to do is I want to make another one of these. So we're going to create another plane called a mid plane. We're going to select this one and our construction plane and hit OK. And now we have a mid plane. So we've got the outside edge, middle. We're going to use this mid plane a lot. So we're going to go to create, mirror. We're going to select components, click on that component, select our mirror plane, which is the mid plane, and there you go. There's your new, there's the other side of your cabinet, exactly 36 inches. And we can verify that by selecting a edge or a face, and that face, and there's 36 inches. So we could turn off plane number 1 and plane number 2 for now. And we are going to turn our sketch back on. So now we want to make some stuff now. So we're going to start from the back. So we're going to create a new body here, or a new component. So I have the sketch turned on, and I selected the back nailer. And I hit extrude. I pull it out a little bit so I can make sure it's what I want. And now there's a couple of things to remember. I don't want that to be connected. I want it its own separate board. So in the operation here is join. I want new component. And I want it to come all the way up to this plane right here. So for the extent, instead of distance where you type in how long it is, I can select 2. So I can select 2 object, and I want it to be that object. So now I have a new board, a new component right there. So we might as well keep everything tidy and right, and get everything named. Right side. Let's see, nailer top. All right, and we're just going to go through and we're going to do that to everything. So click on that, hit extrude, click on new component, click on to object, select it. There we go. Okay, and this is nailer bottom. And now we'll do the top. Select that. New component, distant, change the extent to 2, and hit there. Hit that face. So all these are going to be, these nailers, they're just going to be pocket hole screws into the sides of the cabinet. But now you can see, here's our slot for our back plywood to slide down into. And that's going to make everything nice and square and strong. And the other top. New component to over there. Okay. And now the bottom. Component 2, and now I don't want to select this plane, I want to select inside the dado because I want my bottom to go all the way down to the dado. Okay, and now you can see that the bottom doesn't come all the way to the front. That's a problem. So there's an easy way to fix that because we want that to come all the way to the front. We can turn on our bottom. When we use components, we can turn on just that component and it makes everything else kind of disappear. And it might also show me a mistake I made. It does not appear that my shelf goes all the way inside the dado, so I must have selected the wrong plane when I created it. So we'll try it again. Oh, I see. It's because the sketch was on, see? So we gotta get underneath that sketch, or we can turn the sketch off for now and select that plane. And create from that plane. There we go. New component 2. There's a lot of little things that can trip you up. Alright, there we go. Okay, now you may have noticed something else there. I screwed up. I didn't mean to extrude the back out with it, but it did. It created a new component. All as one. I don't want that. I don't want the back connected. So what I can do is create a sketch on this plane. Oh, come on now. I created a sketch on the wrong plane. So I can create sketch. I can go in. I can select this plane inside the dado. And now draw a line from that corner to that corner. And now that separates the two dados. So I can create two separate components from that. So we'll select that one, go to extrude, and now as I extrude that bottom out, the back doesn't come with it. So we'll make that its own new component, to object, all the way into that dado. And now that looks right. That looks better. It comes into that dado. So we need to now make that bottom come all the way out to the front of the face, the front of the cabinet. So we could turn these sides off. Let's see, we don't want to turn them off. We just want to make the bottom the active component. And now we can extrude that. So yeah, there's a difference between modify and extrude. And most of the time I find that I want to be using extrude. Extrude. Make sure join, because I want it, my new extrusion to be joined to the bottom to the front of the cabinet. Okay, now if we go back here, turn that on, you can see I've extruded the bottom of it to the front of the cabinet, but we have some interference issues. So what we want to do is turn off everything but the bottom and the sides. So we'll turn off the top, the back. There we go. You go to modify, combine. There's a lot of stuff in here I'm just glossing over that might take you a while to learn. You'll just learn it. Target body is the bottom. Tool bodies are sides. We want to cut. We want to keep the tools and hit OK. So now what we've done is we've gotten rid, we put a little jog in there for the blind dado. And our cabinet is beginning to take shape. We have one more thing, a couple more things to create here. Get into a view that we can see. Yeah, we don't want to do that. And we'll turn that nailer off too. We want to get in here into the back dado and create the back. From that, remember, new component, 2, flip it around and get in there. And there's our back. And it goes down and sits on top of the bottom. Good to name. If I turn the bottom off, oh, something went wrong. So we'll delete that. See, the problem was I didn't extrude from that sketch I created. That separates this plane out. So we'll turn that sketch on. Now create a new component to object. In the inside of this. There we go. Whoa. Now you can see the bottom stops right at the top of the bottom. I'm sorry, the back stops right at the top of the bottom. So this is back. Bottom. What is this? That is the top, back, top, front. And the last thing that we need to create is the toe stretch. So I didn't add that to the original sketch. So sketch 1, if you double click on the sketch here, you can edit it. It brings you back into the sketch environment. And so here is our toe kick. So we'll create that box for the toe kick stretcher. and we're going to make it collinear with the back of the toe kick, collinear with the bottom of the bottom of the bottom of the cabinet, and collinear with the very bottom of the carcass. And we'll dimension that last line out to be the cabinet. Let's see, material, toe kick stretcher. All right, finish that sketch, and we'll turn that sketch on, and here we go. Create a new component to object to that plane. Done. Name it toe stretcher. Stretcher? Right? Maybe? And there's your carcass. Oh, almost there's your carcass. We forgot something. Sometimes when you move stuff around, it does that. It gives you a warning to capture the position. I'm not sure exactly what that means, but I've never really had an issue with it. And there we go. There's the divider for the drawers. And there is going to be another vertical divider that holds the two inside drawer slides, but this video is already 42 minutes long, so what we are going to do is take this and ground it, so now it doesn't, we have something that we can create joints from. So that'll be in a future video. So thanks for watching. Stay tuned for part 2 or 3 of finishing the drawers, the drawer boxes, the center divider, the doors, you know, the front of the cabinet, and ultimately modifying the 36-inch to get the 27-inch, I'm sorry, the 24-inch cabinet, and modifying this for the top as well. So we went through all the work of doing all these. We can leverage all of this information to create every cabinet we need in the kitchen.